wrap up presidential systems really quick. Guys, it's not complicated. It's what we have. Okay, did you guys write down presidential? Okay, so with presidential system, the legislative branch and the executive branch, the legislature and executive are separate and independent of each other. You guys remember, I mean, you probably remember this from like middle school or something. Like one of the principles of the Constitution is separation of powers, right? Checks and balances, separation of powers. So these bodies are separate, whereas in a parliamentary system, you have to be in the legislature to be elected to the executive. The legislature gets to choose the executive. Okay, in our system, the Congress does not choose the president. And the president can't be a member of the legislative branch. So when Barack Obama ran for president in 2008, he was a sitting member of the United States Senate. From which state? Don't say Hawaii. Nope. Illinois. Okay, so when he was elected in 2008, he had to leave the Senate. You can't serve in both at the same time. Okay, now he served 2 terms. Could he run for the Senate again? Obama. Yeah, if he wanted to, he could. Probably win. Right? Now he's just writing books and doing speaking engagements, making millions and millions of dollars. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, guys, the chief executive and the head of state are the same person. Who's the chief executive today? Joe Biden. Who's the head of state? Joe Biden. Okay? So he's the ceremonial figurehead of the United States. He is our leader, and he also runs the executive branch. Okay? When we get to section 5 in this class on the executive branch, guys, we'll go into detail about all the roles of the president. And he wears a lot of different hats. Like 8 different hats he wears, okay, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so now, since the legislature doesn't elect the executive, who will, in our system, who elects the president? The executive. Who elects the president in this country? Through the people. The people elect the president through the Electoral College. Now, guys, we're the only country on the planet that uses the Electoral College. Okay, it is unique to the United States. Nobody else uses our system. Nobody else uses the German system. Okay, everybody's a little bit different. Okay, because they write their own constitutions. Yes. Okay. All right. So you're done with. So to this point, guys, we've covered different forms of government. Looking at first, we looked at geographic distribution of power, where the power lies, national, state, or local level. So you had unitary systems, you had confederal systems, and then you had federal systems. Then we looked at different forms of government based on the number of people that could participate. Dictatorships, where very few or one participate. And then democratic systems, where everybody or some people participate, or a lot of people get to participate. Now we're changing our attention to different forms of government based on economic theories as forms of government. That will be our discussion today. Okay, and there I have 5 of these. All right, so you know where we're going next. So that's your next header right there: economic theories as forms of government. Okay, this is pretty interesting discussion to talk about. Obviously, you guys have heard of all of these things on the board. I'm going to define them for you and discuss them a little bit. Okay, some of these definitions are, well, let's just say bureaucratic, wasteful, painful, Let's start with mercantilism. You need to leave space on these, so don't leave space. Some of these definitions are long. Okay? So number one, mercantilism. There is a finite amount of wealth in the world. There's only so much wealth in the world. It's finite. Period. Colonies exist. Colonies exist for the mother country. You guys learned about mercantilism your sophomore year, your junior year a little bit. Okay? If there's only so much wealth in the world, you go out and look for it. And if that means conquering other people to get that wealth, that's what you do. Okay, it's called imperialism, colonialism, right? Or just plain raping and pillaging to get your wealth. So the Spanish went over and conquered the Incas, right? Took all their gold, yes? Then the Incas ran out of gold. And then Spain spent all their gold. And the Spanish ran out of gold. Then they were no longer relevant, right? So most of these colonial empires that we saw, whether it be the British, French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, Spanish, most of them have given up on this system of mercantilism. You understand? Okay? Because it doesn't tend to work that well. But what does the mother country get by taking over and creating a colony? Raw materials, yes? And they have somebody to buy their goods. So the colonies buy their goods from them. So like the British made us buy their foul tea, you know. They wanted us to drink their tea. Okay, so they wouldn't let us buy tea from other people. It's mercantilism. You with me? Good morning. Are you with me? Okay. All right. That's mercantilism. All right. Not really used much anymore. I mean, we still have some territories, right? We have Guam and Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. There's British Virgin Islands and American Virgin Islands. British ones are better. Like St. Thomas. You guys been down there? The French ones are pretty good too down there. The French have some islands down there. But the British have the most. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. The British, they drive on the wrong side of the road. Okay. Socialism. We've all heard of this. Okay. Let me give you a kind of a good definition. Okay. A theory or system of social reform. A theory or system of social reform. Which contemplates a complete reconstruction of society. Which contemplates a complete reconstruction of society. Come. With a more just and equitable, complete reconstruction of society, comma, with a more just and equitable distribution of property and labor. With a more just and equitable distribution of property and labor. Period. Socialism. Okay. Have I ever done the cow thing with you guys? I didn't do that in history. Good. We'll do the cow thing. Okay. This is a political ideology. Some of these are economic ideologies. And all of them start with you have 2 cows. Okay. And you go from there. So socialism. You have 2 cows. The government takes your cows and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. Then it gives you as much milk as it thinks you need. So think of your cows as tax dollars. So everybody's got money, tax money. It all goes to the government, into the government barn, and then it redistributes or gives you as much health care as it thinks you need. So remember we talked about Medicare for all, right? A universal single-payer healthcare system. Okay, so you would no longer necessarily use insurance companies, but you would pay those taxes into the government, and then the government would cover everybody. That would be socialistic medicine, okay, or socialistic healthcare system. All right, we do this in some ways, like we do this with public education, right? So everybody pays property taxes, everybody pays state income taxes. That money goes to fund education, and anybody that has a kid can send their kids to school there for free. Okay, if you don't have any kids, you're still paying the taxes. Okay, or if you send your kids to private school, you're not using the money, right? You're paying tuition, and you're paying 2 times. Okay, now with the healthcare system, guys, we know that money's no issue, right? Like, we're only $31 trillion in debt. So what happens when you run out of money for the healthcare system? You're going to have to ration care, right? So the government's going to decide how much milk you get. They're going to decide how much healthcare you get. And who's going to get the short end of the stick here? Who's going to get rationed? Old people. Look, if the government only has so much money, if you're 75 years old and you break your hip, you guys know about this? Somebody that's old breaks their hip, they generally go downhill fast. Okay, it happened to my father-in-law. Like, he broke his hip, and everybody just kind of knows. In the healthcare industry, or people that have been around, they're not going to last very long. Okay, so why would you spend, $50,000 on somebody that's 75 years old that needs a hip replacement when you're having trouble funding a kidney transplant for a 15-year-old? Obviously, who are you going to choose? You're going to choose the 15-year-old, right? We're just going to give the 75-year-old some morphine to keep them comfortable at home until they die. You guys know what euthanasia is, right? Okay. Just remember, like, when we talk about when people no longer believe in God, your laws change. Okay, so you'll start to see euthanasia. Okay, you're already seeing it. I mean, in Europe, it's a thing. Assisted suicide, if you will. Okay. Yeah, you guys, you go down a rabbit hole on this. Okay. But I think Margaret Thatcher, who's the former British Prime Minister, they called her the Iron Lady. She said this about socialism. She said, eventually you're going to run out of other people's money. So remember when I talked about the bottom 50% of Americans, how much they pay in taxes, the total tax bill, which is about 2.3% of all the federal income taxes, the bottom 50%. So if you go to a national healthcare system, okay, who's going to be paying for the bottom 50%? The top 50%. Okay, eventually you're going to run out of their money. More socialism, or you just keep raising taxes, which is what they do in Europe. Okay, if you want the nanny state, that the welfare state, then you got to pay for it. Okay, that's socialism. All right. The third, economic theory as a form of government. This is a long one. Is communism. A scheme, S-C-H-E-M-E, a scheme of equalizing the social conditions of life. A scheme of equalizing the social conditions of life, semicolon. Specifically, comma, a scheme which contemplates, specifically a scheme which contemplates the abolition of inequalities, a scheme which contemplates the abolition of inequalities in the possession of property, comma, an abolition of inequalities in the possession of property, comma, as by possession of property, as by distributing all wealth equally to all, as by distributing all wealth equally to all, comma, or by holding all wealth in common, distributing wealth equally to all, or by holding all wealth in common for the equal use and advantage of all. For the equal use and advantage of all. Period. Communism. Or by holding all wealth in common for the equal use and advantage of all. We've talked about communism here, guys. Okay, so let's just kind of go over this again. Okay, communism obviously is based on the theories of Karl Marx. Okay, so Marxism and communism are not the exact same thing. Okay, and you guys know many of the times that communism has been attempted on this planet throughout the 20th century into the 21st century. Okay, starting with the Soviet Union. Okay, communism. You have 2 cows. Your neighbors help you take care of them. You don't really own these cows, by the way. They're just in your possession. Okay. And everyone shares the milk. It's wonderful. Okay? I mean, really, communism, or Marxism, you should say, is a utopian type idea. It just hasn't turned out that way. You know what I mean? Like when it's been tried to be implemented. Okay? And there's a lot of reasons why it hasn't turned out very good. Okay? Like you can talk about Russian communism. You have 2 cows, you have to take care of them, then the government takes all the milk. Okay, that's kind of how it turned out. So that's not a great one, but you guys know how it turns out. We talked about it in history. Okay, but it is trying to abolish inequality, social classes, economic classes, and so forth. Okay. By disseminating property in common, wealth in common. Everybody shares equally. All right. The fourth, one of the hardest words in the English language to spell, for me, is bureaucracy. Okay. I don't know why. I just can't get my brain to remember how to spell this word. Okay. Anybody else have trouble with this word? Oh, thank you. I'm not alone. Whew. All right. Bureaucracy. Now, you've all heard of this, right? Okay. It's a real thing. Okay? It's all around us. And after I give you this definition, why don't I read the cows first, then I'll give you the definition, and then I'm going to talk to you, okay, about like what you guys do. All right. So bureaucracy. You have two cows. The government regulates what you can feed them. Now, on that note, remember how cows are one of the causes of climate change, right? You guys heard this, right? So they're actually talking about, any guys ever take like Gas X or Beano when you get gas and you're farting a lot, you get like you're all stopped up or something. Yeah, you take that, you're burping a lot, take some Gas X, right? Something's going on. They're actually talking about giving cows like these types of things so they fart less and produce less methane for the planet. Okay. So the government regulates what you can feed the cows and when you can milk them, then pays you not to. Then it takes both cows, shoots one, milks the other dry, and pours the milk down the drain. Then it requires you to fill out forms accounting for the missing cows. Remember when we talked about the New Deal? When they killed 6 million baby pigs and they paid farmers not to plant crops, they plowed up crops, stuff like that. Okay? This is not unreal. Bureaucracy is all around us. So let me define it for you. A system of carrying on the business of government. A system of carrying on the business of government by means of departments or bureaus. System of carrying on the business of government by means of departments or bureaus. B-U-R-E-A-U-S, comma. Each under the control of a chief. Each under the control of a chief. C-H-I-E-F. Chief. Comma. In contradiction to a system, in which the officers of government have an associated authority and responsibility. The officers of government have an associated authority and responsibility. Period. Good? Okay. So let me ask you a question. I'm just going to go around the room here, okay? How many of you guys have jobs? Yeah, I'm going to ask you what you do. What do you do? Okay, where? Okay, so generally, what are you doing? Like,
I help people, old folks use the bathroom.
Okay.
I cook, I clean, I help them change clothes.
Okay, like several people in a day?
Yeah.
Just a couple that you look
like
after?
12.
Okay. Where at?
Yeah.
Okay, now, do you ever bus tables? Do you ever deliver food? Okay. Johnson's Carpet Outlet? What, John? What?
The gardens.
Oh, what do you do there?
I do a lot. I do like projects. He does everything.
That's
I
awesome.
basically run the place.
Okay, I may come back to you.
I don't have a job.
Okay.
I babysit and
Okay.
I swim coach, and I am a lifeguard and someone's in. I'm a host on Abuelos.
You have bus tables?
Not really.
No, they got people that do that. Do you ever have to deliver food, help deliver food around?
No.
That well-run machine over there.
I host that for time.
Bus tables ever? Deliver food ever?
Somebody.
Help out? Where at? Biggs? One over here? On what, on, Central? Really? I've been there. Did you do anything else?
Yeah, I help I pack a bunch of stuff. I'll mop the floor.
You're a grunt.
I do everything. I help cook everything.
Okay. You do, oh, good, okay. It's a good experience.
Receptionist, and I lifeguard
Receptionist where?
at Remedy Spa.
What?
Remedy Spa.
You ever get massages? Do nails and nothing like that? Dairy Queen, what do you do? Up front? You don't like working up front? Or,
I mostly.
okay,
That's
okay. All right, let's come back over here to Johnson's Garden Center, okay? And then, also, you, okay, so in the definition, it says in contradiction to a system where the officers of government have an associated authority and responsibility. So your job is to make the customer happy, and help the business make money. So you're looking at efficiency, you want return customers, and so forth. So if the business where you're at Cheddar's, if you got a big line, which you usually do, if they need you to clear a table so we can, get people in quickly, then you help out. Okay, even though that's not really your job. You know what I mean? Same thing with delivering food, but you're trying to make the customer happy. That's very efficient. Okay, now it sounds like Abuelos is very efficient as well, but they might have too many employees. So just because, they're using their employees for a lot of things at Cheddar's. Where at Abuelos, they've got people that do that and they don't have much of an associated authority and responsibility. You follow me? So which business model is better? That's what you got to figure out. How do you make money as a business? The more efficient you are, the happier you make the customer, the better you're going to make more money, right? So when you get into bureaucracy, guys, generally governments tend to be very bureaucratic. Some businesses are, and it costs them a lot of money. So I never told you guys this, but I was once elected to public office. You guys didn't know that, did you? About 15 years ago, I was elected by my neighbors to the Whispering Brook Homeowners Association Board of Directors. Civics, okay? Now, with that power comes a lot of responsibility, okay? Now, any of you guys live in one of these neighborhoods where you have to pay dues and they mow the grass for you? You gotta keep your grass mowed. If your house paint is chipping or fading, you gotta paint your house. We have to have at least one tree in the front yard, okay? And you have to have your Christmas lights down by February 1st. You can't leave your Christmas lights up all year. You can't park an RV in front of your house for 72 hours. You got to move it. You can't just leave it there because, you can't park a car in your front yard. Okay? And jack it up on, and work on it for, a month. Because the person next to you that's trying to sell their house aren't going to be able to get what they want from that house because you got a freaking, beater in your front yard. You understand? So in Whispering Brook, we have fountains. And we have a Whispering Brook where water's supposed to run through it, okay, from the fountains. The brooks only run when it's raining. Okay, there's no Whispering Brook most of the time. It's just a brook. That's drought or something. Anyhow, if you don't pay your dues, put a lien on their house, which means you can't sell your house, you can't refinance your house, you can't do anything with your house until you pay your dues. Okay? So we had this guy in our neighborhood. He was actually a cop, wouldn't pay his dues. So they said somebody's got to go put a lien on his house. So I go to City Hall, all right, downtown. I go to the information. I've never done this before. I say, hi, my name's Charlie Ebright. I'm from the Whispering Brook Homeowners Association, and I need to put a lien on somebody's house. And the lady at the information, very nice lady, she says, oh, okay, you need to go up to the 5th floor. So I take the elevator to the 5th floor, and I get out of the elevator. There's 2 windows. I get in the one with the shorter line. I wait a few minutes, get to the front of the window, and I say, hi, I'm Charlie Ebright from the Whispering Brook Homeowners Association. I need to put a lien on somebody's house. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this window. You're going to need to go to the other window. So get back in line, wait, get to the front window, and I say, hi, I'm Charlie Ebright from the Whispering Homeowners. I need to put a lien on somebody's house. And she goes, is this a residential lien? I'm like, yeah, it's a homeowners association. Now I'm getting kind of, chippy. Okay. Goes, oh, I'm sorry. We just do commercial liens here. You're going to need to go down to the 3rd floor. Okay. At this point, you know what I mean? I'm going, you guys have been to the DMV, right? Now you got to give the DMV some credit, right? They've done a pretty good job, like with the text, get in line texting thing. They've gotten better. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's a joke. I mean, people talk about it because there's only one place. Get your license, and that's the DMV. Now, I go to Andover, right? Anybody else go to Andover to do theirs? Yeah, I mean, it's stupid. The one in Wichita, it's crazy, man. They got one for the whole freaking city of Wichita, and they got one for the whole city of Andover. I'm going there. Okay? Derby has one, I think. But, yeah, guys, you're just a number. And they don't have to make a profit, you understand. And as the definition says, a series of chiefs that control bureaus or departments. And you're not allowed to do other people's job. If I went into Cheddar's or I went into Johnson and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't do that. You need to get over here. I'm like, I'm going to go to your manager and say, look, I just asked one of your employees for help and they shuffled me around to somebody else. And I got to go find this person. No, you need to take care of me, right? That's your job. In government, you don't get that. And any businesses that are very bureaucratic, guys, they don't last very long. They don't make money. They're inefficient. But government is not answerable to that. They don't have to make a profit. So governments tend to be very bureaucratic. So when we talk about the national healthcare system, if you want to see what that looks like, go to the VA. Talk to veterans that have to go to the Veterans Affairs hospitals and ask them if they would rather be able to go to Via Christi St. Francis than to the Veterans Hospital. Because if you go to the VA, guys, you're going to be there all day. Talk to them. Ask them about it. Okay? There's no profit motive. Via Christi's got to make money. Otherwise, they don't stay open. You understand? Okay? Now, it may not be a big for-profit hospital, you know what I mean? But they've got to be efficient. Okay? Otherwise, they have to keep raising prices. So, it's an interesting thing to look at. Bureaucracy. A lot of terms that you get with this, like red tape. You ever heard this? Like you got to cut through the red tape to get anything, or jump through hoops. You ever heard this? You got to jump through a bunch of hoops to get anything done. Okay, instead of just getting it done. Okay, it's a lot of bureaucracy. Okay, I mean, just like anything you do. Like say you're going to buy a house. You got to get a loan. It's like complicated. There's a lot of crap you got to do because there's a lot of regulations and so forth. Okay, a lot of red tape. When I started teaching here, guys, 25 years ago, there was very little bureaucracy. Now that I'm a department chair, 25 years later, it's like, holy crap. This morning, and I'm answering emails from Mrs. Strecker about my learning intentions. Okay, seriously, like they said, you need to set 2 goals, and my 2 goals were to build a better relationship with my students. She asked how that was going, and I gave her some examples of some of the things I was doing. And then the other one was longer wait times when I ask a question. Like let it stew a little bit, right? And I've really been doing that. I mean, like that's been a focus for me. And it's funny because to think about it, I'm like, okay, how has that worked out? Well, I have the Robin girl in 3rd hour or 4th. Yeah. And so she just shouts out random crap. You know what I mean? Like silly stuff, you know, but it can kind of lead to lightening the mood of the classroom, right? Somebody, yeah, says something stupid. But anyhow,
You can say our names, it's okay.
yeah. But the wheels are turning. A lot of times, if you just let it sit there for a minute, right? The wheels are turning. Some of you guys are trying to think of the answer, and so forth. So, you know, but I'm 6:20 this morning. I'm answering emails on that. You know what I mean? I really don't need to do that. And I learned this stuff back in college when I got my master's about, you know, longer wait times for questions and clarity and this sort of thing. Okay, sorry. It's just more stuff for me to do. You understand? Oh, and don't get me started on the community system. Oh, it's going to be student led. Yeah. More responsibilities, less pay. You know what I mean? Okay. I'll stop bitching.
Did the Govt pay his dues?
Yeah, they have. I mean, they can't sell. Yeah. So, and we had one lady on the board after I got off. Was a state trooper, and she freaking stole like $30,000 from our thing. Yeah, she was on the board. She got caught. So, like, they sold their house and took the profits from the house and paid off like the $30,000. Yeah, Whispering Brook, man, it's going on. All 77 houses in our neighborhood. Okay. Yeah. The 5th economic theory as a form of government is, you got it, capitalism. Capitalism. Okay, this is a shorter definition. You're welcome. There's an infinite amount of wealth in the world. So I have Caleb in my 0 hour. You guys know Caleb? Plumbing. Soccer player. You know who he is. I don't need faces. So he mows lawns. Okay? How many mows can he mow? How many mows? Whoa, crap. How many lawns can you mow in a day in the middle of the summer? You got a lot of hours of daylight, yes? There's an infinite number of lawns that he can mow. You know what I mean? Like, and then he can hire somebody to mow for him, and then he gets a cut because it's his business. Like, it's infinite. Like, he could make a lot of money, and there are people that do this in our communities, mowing yards. Okay? There's an infinite amount of wealth. That's a belief in a capitalist theory. Okay? Supply and demand control the free market. Supply and demand control the free market. So what do people want? If you figure out what people want and you can make it for them at a good price, you're going to get rich. Right? What do people want? Apple Watch, the pods, all that stuff, right? What do people want? Spotify, right? Look at Spotify, right? What do people want? They want Joe Rogan and all the music that's ever been made. You know what I mean? What do people want? Okay. Competition is good. Competition is good for the consumer. It's good for the business. Makes you more efficient. Makes you derive better products for people. Now, we know who inspired communism. Who inspired the ideas of capitalism? I always think this is funny because we live in a capitalistic system, but nobody knows who do we attribute that to. But we all know about Karl Marx. Is that some type of conspiracy in our education system? Everybody's teaching Marxism, but nobody's teaching capitalism? A very common name. He wrote The Wealth of Nations. Who? Somebody said something. Not John. The first man ever. Adam. And the most common name? Smith. Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations, where he talked about laissez-faire. Remember that? Laissez-faire. Okay, let me spell that for you. Laissez-F-A-I-R-E. What's laissez-faire mean? Hands off. Government hands off. Okay. Now, Coach George and I, we argue about this a little bit about unfettered capitalism versus regulatory capitalism. Like the stock market, we need some regulation, right? We got to have some regulations. Like we don't want the food industry watching over the food industry. We want an outside, so you don't have like salmonella and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You want somebody outside looking over it. Now, guys, let me talk about the cows. You have 2 cows. You sell one and buy a bull. Bull, the heifer, mate. Yes? And then you have 3 cows. Yes? And then after a while, you trade bulls with another person, so you're not having all this inbreeding. And then, boom, pretty soon you have cattle. You're milking the cows. You're butchering the cows. Now, you get so many cows that you don't have time to milk them, so you hire somebody to milk the cows, right? That person is frugal with their money. They buy some chickens, okay? And over time, they're going to build a chicken farm, okay? Then, once you have so much milk, you're going to hire a truck driver to deliver your milk. That truck driver also says, you know what? This guy has a lot of eggs. I can deliver his eggs too. So he buys a second truck. Next thing you know, he's got a trucking company. Now, the people that work for him, the other truck drivers, they save their money and they start their own endeavors. Guys, this creates wealth. When you own your own business and you hire people, you are creating wealth for other people. You follow me? Guys, this actually works. You understand? Like crazy good. It works really well. How did we become the most powerful economic machine that the planet has ever seen? Was it through socialism? Was it through communism? Was it through bureaucracy? Was it through mercantilism? Maybe at the beginning? No, guys. This works. And the sad thing is, it's become a dirty word in our universities. Many of our universities, the evil of capitalism, right? Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. I'll convince you otherwise, okay? Capitalism can be good. Now, Is it driven by greed? Yeah. But what can you do good with that greed? You can do a lot. You know what I mean? All right. You guys have a great day. Catch you tomorrow.